Hi, this is Bob Sorrentino from Italian Roots and Genealogy, and I'm here today with Michele Cole, and we're going to talk about her search for her Italian ancestors. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So let's start off with why you went on the search, because I understand that I guess your parents aren't Italian. I think it was your grandmother's Italian, correct?
Yes, it's my grandmother. Actually, it's kind of a little funny story. I only got into genealogy probably about 5 years ago. And the reason I did was because my husband got me an ancestry subscription because my kids are getting older. And he said, I know you're going to have empty nest. So here you go. And he was correct. But I absolutely love it. I can't believe the things I've found out about my family. I had no idea. My grandmother on my mother's side is Italian. That's where I had no idea she had 9 brothers and sisters. So that started me on the journey, and I've just haven't stopped since.
I know it's a disease,
Yes.
or an addiction, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's very addictive.
And yeah, that's my mother had 9 in her family, so it's
Mhm.
for us growing up, I of course knew them all, so it was
Yeah.
crazy town back then.
Yeah.
So um, so now, did you find out what part of Italy she was from?
Yes, actually, my mother did know that they were from Vico Equense. So that was great. And I put together, I actually was amazed. I'm very happy that so many of my Italian American cousins had done DNA tests. So when I got DNA results, it just seemed like my whole list was my Italian American family. And as I started contacting them, I kept getting more and more information. So it was fantastic. Um,
So you didn't know any of them, basically.
no, I knew that I had 2 uncles growing up, but one didn't have children and one did have children, but they had moved away. But I only knew about the 2 brothers that my grandmother had. So I knew about no one else. So my mother knew a few, but not that many because my grandmother was 9. So she was the 9th child. So, and the first 3 were born in Italy. Um, so it was a big gap in age.
And yeah, and that's not dissimilar to most of us that have the large families. The same thing with
Yes.
my mom and even my dad's family. It was like 20 years between the
Hmm.
oldest and the youngest.
Yes.
My mother had nieces and nephews almost her age.
Yep. Yep.
It's like I said, it made things very confusing when we were growing up, and
Yes.
uh, everybody's somebody's cousin, aunt, or uncle, or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, but you're
Um,
really close in age.
and so, reading through your notes, you kind of went down the wrong path because and this is, I think, good advice for people. You latched onto somebody's ancestry chart that I guess wasn't accurate.
Yes. There were a few people that have a certain parents for my great grandfather Francesco Gargiulo that is very incorrect. And actually, it was a combination. I do have a first cousin that I don't know very well. He grew up in Florida when I was in New Jersey. But I had sent him the tree that I put together, and he said to me, Michelle, I think we qualify for dual citizenship. And I was like, wait, what's that? Um, but through that, he went and got the birth certificate of our great grandparents or our great grandfather. And that's how I realized, wait a second, this isn't correct. But it was a combination too, because I had a cousin that we could not figure out our relationship. He lived in Arizona, and I thought we could not figure it out to save our lives. And it was because I had the wrong second great grandparents. And as soon as I found out who the actual second great grandparents were, boom, we knew we were third cousins. So it was fantastic.
I know when you make those connections, it's really amazing.
Yes.
And I did that, some of it through Facebook because um, I didn't know that I had any cousins in Italy. Nobody ever talked about it. So, when I started finding them, that was really cool. So now, have you found cousins in Italy?
Not yet, and that is my quest. Yes, I'm determined I will. I'm sure that I have cousins there. And nobody has kept in touch with anyone that I know of. I have tried to reach out. You probably know some cousins reply and great, a lot, and some don't. And so, yeah, not everybody replies to me. And I'm sure there are some over there.
Yeah, probably. You just have to, hunt them down, and you
Yes.
never know what, once you find one, you start
Mhm.
getting all of these other connections. And I just, heard from somebody a couple of weeks ago that I never knew. Um,
Ah, that's
and
always
but
exciting.
one of the things I did is I started a Facebook group just for um, my cousins from both sides of the family. So
Ah,
as I find people, I
mhm.
add them to that group, and they'll come up with photos that we never seen. So
That's
um,
fantastic.
you you never know what's gonna come out of it. And
Yeah.
the picture of my grandmother behind me from the book cover, that was sent to me not too long ago
Okay.
from his, let's see, Nicholas, my first cousin once removed,
Mhm.
and his mother had photographs from her father that nobody ever seen. And my grandmother had sent postcards to Italy in 1919, 1920,
Wow.
with her handwriting on the back.
Oh,
And
that's nice.
so these were missing for 100 years.
Mhm.
So, once you find that connection, it's really fabulous.
Yeah. I
Um,
definitely hope to.
so I have to ask, so now your grandmother, did she marry an Italian, or she married a non-Italian?
No, she married actually, through genealogy, I knew my grandfather was Danish, but I had no idea until I started that he was actually from Denmark. He only came over when he was about 19. So, it's so interesting things that you find because he was Lutheran, and then found out that their marriage certificate, of course, back then, Lutheran Catholic wasn't looked upon. They had to get married in the back of the Catholic Church
That's
because he
right.
was Lutheran. so, so yeah, so
And that's really unusual for somebody from that era to marry a non-Italian.
yes, yes, 19, I guess 1942. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in my mother's family, everybody married Italian except for my youngest uncle,
Mm,
and my aunt Margie was from Scottish descent, but everybody else was Italian.
yeah.
Um, and funny, you mentioned the thing about the back of the church. Um, my cousin Marilyn, she married a Protestant, and I
Mm,
remember that this must have been, maybe I was 12 or 13 or something like that. So probably 64, maybe 65. Um, and they couldn't get married at the altar. They had to get married not in the back of the church, but they
mm.
they couldn't. They had to get married at the altar rail.
Oh, okay.
So where most weddings, two Catholics who got married right in front of the altar, they
Hmm.
couldn't go that far.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it's mind-boggling, but there you go. Uh, but
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
and I found uh, on the Antonati, I found I don't know if wasn't the church record. It was a state record of my it was my second great grandparents on the Sorrentino side, and it's like 34 pages.
Oh, wow.
And it goes on and on and on, and they name this and they name that. And the only thing I could figure is my great grandmother's family uh, were lawyers.
Oh.
So they had everything but the kitchen sink in this marriage contract almost. It's almost
I
like
was
a
gonna say
contract.
almost like a prenuptial.
Yeah, yeah. And even
Mhm.
crazy stuff like he swears that he was never in the military. I don't know why that would have anything to do with it, but it's this. I've never seen anything like it, and I asked people around, and they said they've never seen anything like it either.
Probably
So
gave you a lot
now,
of information.
no, yeah, yeah, more information than I certainly needed. Um, so now, have you used the Antenati at all? Have you been able to find anything on there? Or it's hard
So
when you
it
go back that far.
yes, but it hasn't been that long that I've really known how to navigate through Antonati. But I spend every evening on it. I have been able to build my tree, and yes, I have found great uncles, great aunts. I've been able to go probably the late 1700s, which is probably
It's
as far
pretty
as I'll
good.
get
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But it has been fantastic because eventually I do want to go to Italy, and if I have to, I want to hire somebody to see if there is family in the area. So by doing all the branches, I should be able to find. But yeah, I'm hoping to bump into somebody that way.
Yeah, and if you do, I know several really good people over there that you could trust.
Oh,
And
great! Thanks.
I actually had because I was stuck on the Sorrentino side. Um, my mother's family, for some reason, this little town in Puglia, almost all the records on it, the Antenati, and I found like 150 records or something like that. Sorrentino, I couldn't find it all, and I hired somebody, and he found me uh, a bunch of stuff, and that's how I found. He's the guy who found that long, lengthy marriage contract.
Great.
Um,
That is true though, because Antonati for me for Vico Equense is missing from 1865 to 1900. So other than my great grandparents, I can't really get their full siblings because that time period. So
right, and I've interviewed people from there a couple of times from Family Search, and they photographed almost everything. They're still doing more, but it's the indexing that's taking so much time.
yes,
Because they need people to volunteer and go in there and index all of these records. So,
I wish I could find someone because I'd be happy to help index. I'm looking through them now anyway, but I haven't been able to find anyone.
I'm glad you asked. I'll send you the link, and I'll actually put it in the blog too. Um, I interviewed the guy who actually, I don't know if he still is, um, and in fact, his name, I think his last name is Cole, actually, if
Oh,
I
really?
remember correctly, and he's got this Italian accent.
Oh,
So funny. Um, but he he explains how to do it, and I think the link is even in that post,
oh, okay.
where you could go in there, and the toughest thing about it and I tell this to people all the time, you have to check the spellings because this it's so hard to read the writing, and you can't fault the people who are doing the indexing. They put in what they think it's supposed to be, but
Mhm.
uh, I have a grandmother from great grandmother from Switzerland, and her name is Mohr, Mohr,
Okay,
and it's on the Antenati as Moler.
okay.
And I found it because I found something else, and then I saw that pop up on the side, and I was like, "Wait a second, that's probably her." And sure enough, it was. So now, have you found any interesting occupations going through some of the uncles and
Most of
aunts?
them, nothing really. I mean, we do have landowners, but a lot of like seamen. That's pretty much seems to be um, the biggest occupations. I think I have found a stonemason, but nothing. But that's pretty much it right now.
But that's pretty good. If you found somebody who's a landowner or property owner, that means they had some status in the town. So again, if you hire somebody, they'll be able to find stuff, I'm sure.
It's funny you say that because there is a what do you call it, rumor that part of the family did have money or status or something. So it'll be interesting to go down that path and see what that is at some point.
Yeah, and my mother's side, they're all farmers and seamstresses and farm hands, and my father's side, there were his from his father were some attorneys, and then my grandmother was from noble families. But that's where you see property owner, and then one or two cases actually says occupation rich person. Could you
That's
imagine?
funny.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Which I didn't think was an occupation. I thought it just she had a lot of money, but
Yeah, that's great.
and then also if they have, Don or Adonna in front of the name, again, that means that they had some status because they didn't put that in just for the, you know, uh,
Actually, I didn't know that, and there are I found probably
yeah,
about 2 that have that, so I
yeah.
have to
If it
look.
says, Don Giovanni or
Okay,
Donna Giuseppina or something like that, that means that they had some sort of status.
okay.
Um,
Definitely
and
come across that
and,
once or twice.
and it kind of if they're just common people, it won't say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Great.
so
Oh,
you
great to
could go
know.
back and look and,
Yes, I will.
and see what you could find. And then, my grandmother's case, my great grandmother, she's got probably 10 or 12 names strung together. And
Wow.
and and I asked somebody once and I said, you know, I don't get it. I don't see that on other records. And they said, well, the the nobles had a they did that and they put in different saints' names and um, uh, names from the Bible
Yes.
for some strange reason. And
Yeah,
not all of them, but there are some.
there is one branch that every daughter, the first name is Maria. Every single one.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon either. But they didn't use the name. They didn't use that.
Right.
They used the second name. They
Yes.
used yeah. Like my
Yeah.
grandmother is Maria Amelia, and my other grandma is Maria Luisa, but she went by the name of Luisa.
Mhm.
Uh, and the interesting thing I- I've heard people call my grandmother, the one picture behind me, her name's Luisa or Luigia in
Mhm.
Italy. And um, I've seen people refer to her as Regina. And I asked over there and I said, why are they calling her Regina? And my cousin was trying to explain it to me, and I wasn't comprehending until I he sent me the card.
Mhm.
And she signed her name to her father, Gigina,
Oh, so
Gigia,
cute.
right? So that
Mhm.
must have been how he referred to her for whatever reason, because there's nobody in the family by that name.
Mhm.
But that must have been what her father called her.
Yeah.
So that explained
Mhm.
why people referred to her as Regina, but it wasn't Regina. Now,
Yeah.
maybe, Regina, I guess, is like, queen or something like that. So maybe this Regina was the
Oh,
short form
yeah.
of that. Again, we'll never know.
You
Uh,
always get you get various nicknames in your family that stick.
yeah, exactly. And they told me too that my cousin told me that my grandmother always called my father Little Nicky in English. She referred to him
Mhm.
as Little Nicky because his
Okay.
grandfather was Nicola.
Mm.
My father, of course, born in New Jersey, he's anglicized. They used Nicholas. Um, but then Nicola told me that when the grandfather is alive, they never refer to the son or the grandson by that name. They always put, at least in Naples anyway, they always put the diminutive after it. So he told me that he was Nicolino.
Mm.
His grandfather was Nicola, so he was Nicolino.
Oh,
That's what my father would have been in Italy, Nicolino. But
yes.
because they were in America, she called him Little Nicky.
Yeah.
And I thought it was always because he was the youngest in the family. But now it was
It's for
probably because, out of respect for her father, that's what they called him, Little
mhm.
Nicky.
Yeah. You love
And
hearing those stories.
uh, yeah, it's so interesting. And the other thing that was fun with him was uh, he's my father's first cousin, because my great grandfather had two families 30 years apart.
Oh, okay.
So he's actually younger than me, but he
Mhm.
said, I'm in Naples, I'm actually your uncle. He said,
Mhm.
because I'm your father's first cousin.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and that's you know a lot of Italians. We always called our father's cousins the older cousins, aunt or uncle, or things like that. So
Mhm.
now I have to ask: did you research the Danish family?
I have. I haven't gone too far. When I first started, I had never heard the term patrionomics. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. But so it's very interesting. The first name um, becomes your last name. So that part is very interesting. So I haven't gotten too far, but I haven't done a lot of work on that yet. I've spent most of my time on Italy right now, especially because my mother is still with us. So I can get any questions I have, I can ask her. My father's not with us anymore. Um, and she doesn't, there aren't as many Danish cousins that I know of. There's so many more Italian that I just started there.
Yeah.
But she definitely does have family in Denmark too. So
Oh, well, that's cool. That's pretty
it
cool. I've
is,
never
yes,
been there, but I'm sure it's a really neat place.
yes.
Uh, I've been close to there, but I've never actually got. I always wanted to go because I think it's a really cool place.
I have
Um,
a lot of places on my bucket list now for travel.
well, yeah, of course. Well, our first trip to Italy was 25 years ago, and we just got back this year. We had to cancel a couple of times because of
Yeah,
COVID. We were supposed
yeah.
to go uh, in April of 2020, just
Oh,
after, but it kind of turned out it was a blessing in disguise because other things came um, apparent after, as we were waiting and more finding more and more people and things like that. So I
mm,
guess in the long run it was the thing, but
oh,
uh, yeah, you definitely have to go back. I'd like to go to Lucerne because I never knew I had a Swiss grandmother.
oh, I've been in Lucerne. Yeah,
Yeah, so
very
uh,
pretty. Mhm.
I'm sure, and they that's a Catholic canton. At least it was. I don't know if it still is, but it was. I don't know what's going on there now, but they would send soldiers to around Europe
Mhm.
to augment the different armies. So that's how they wound up in Naples.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, crazy, right? I never knew that.
Yes, yes.
But you
I
always
wish.
find things by accident.
I traveled for work in my early 20s, and I wish I knew then, or I wish,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because I was in Switzerland, and I would have definitely, I didn't realize pretty much all of my family is Europe, so so I wish I'd known then.
Yeah, I know. I did the same thing with me. Sometimes I'm like, oh boy, I finally knew that. Like the first time we
Yeah.
went to Italy, I didn't know any of this. It was 25. I wasn't doing this, and I didn't know that my families lived, right down the road from the train station. So we took the train to pick up a car to go to Sorrento, and we probably could have just walked to where they lived.
Aw.
But now we know. And so how about your dad's family? Now, where's your dad from?
Actually, my dad is from pretty German. It has been fantastic. I bumped into a group that there's about 50 of us that we figured out we're all related. The last name is Schmidt. So it's Schmidt or Smith in the US, or it's, got a few variations, but we're all over the US, but we all descend from, we've gotten to like fifth, sixth, seventh grandparent, like great grandparents. So that is fantastic. That's my maternal, my dad's mother. And then my dad's father is from Hungary. And I'm having a heck of a time trying to find anything there. I think I've gotten to my great grandparent or my great great grandparent. That's it so far.
So you're like everything. You're a mix of everything. All
Oh,
your ancestry chart must be like all over the
yes.
place.
What's even funnier is my husband is Irish and English. So our kids or a big mix.
Now is his yeah, that's like everything you could think of. Now did his family come here, like, early on? Do you know when his family came to the States?
There is someone in Canada actually that did a lot of research on the Cole family. And so it looks like the first person was a fisherman, late 1700s, that came to Canada and then came down because we're from New Jersey.
Mhm.
So came down the coast and wound up settling in New Jersey. And then the Irish. The Irish, I wanna say they came second. They came because of the potato famine.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah.
so, but I know their records. I haven't done a lot with their records yet, but I know that the records are a little bit harder because of fires and things like that there. So
Um,
eventually.
yeah, I had to do my ex-wife just because I was so curious about it, because I knew that her family was same thing. Her mom was Irish, her father was German,
Mm,
and I started finding going back, and I got her mom's family back to Ireland. Uh, her, I think it was. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I think it may have been her dad's family, but I'm not sure. It may have been her mother. But I found out that they had Dutch in New
mm.
York in the 1600s, and
Ooh,
in fact, uh, her third or fourth great grandfather sold Rikers Island to New York. Eh,
wow.
So the name was uh, Van Ricken or something like that, something
Okay.
in that vicinity. And in the 1800s, he sold Rikers Island to
Wow.
them, to the state, I guess, of the city.
It's
Um,
amazing the things, yeah, that you uncover.
and
And
they had farms. Her mom's family, going back, had farms throughout Hempstead. If you're familiar with Nassau, right?
Mhm.
Throughout Hempstead, Suffolk County.
Yep.
Um, one of the family names was Wright, Wright, and they were there's several branches of them. Same
Mhm.
thing. They came from like upstate. So yeah, when you start digging, finding Americans and Irish and especially English, so much easier than finding Italians.
Yes. Well, and the Irish and the English is so much better. I can read the language
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, that's another plus.
between Danish and German and Italian and Hungarian and yeah, I'm like trying to get those words, those key words.
But when you start getting familiar with the Antonati, you kind of start to pick up on the main words.
You do, yeah. You pick it up, and like you said, the only problem sometimes is the handwriting. You're like, what is that letter? And yeah, that's the only.
Yeah, I'm my all my records are between the person who writes really neat, the two people who write really neat, and mine's in the middle with the person who doesn't can't can barely write.
Oh.
So now, I always ask people because I'm always curious because my family thinks I'm nuts. What does your family think? What did you? They, I guess your husband must be killing himself because he opened up this can of worms, right?
Yes. Everybody thinks I'm crazy. Yes. Um, I actually, so during I'm actually a nurse. And I worked through the pandemic and I decided to take a little bit of time off. So I decided to go back to school. So I'm taking some genealogy classes right now.
Okay.
So yes, everybody thinks I'm out of my mind. I'm like, but I like it. It's great. It's not even homework. I enjoy it. So yeah, so they think I'm a little crazy. But my kids are very excited when they found out about the dual citizenship. They think that is very cool. Um, and really, they're the only reason why I think it would be amazing to have. It would, potentially give them opportunities at some point, maybe, or great grandchildren, great grandchildren, who knows?
Well,
Um,
I'm actually doing the same thing, and for the same reason. I'm obviously a lot older than you, and but I'm doing it for the same reason, so the kids could have it.
mhm.
It's especially advantageous for school because the
Yes.
school is so cheap over there. It's
Mhm.
unbelievable. My daughter's a nurse in Texas now. She
Oh,
was
okay.
doing travel. She was doing travel nursing for the last couple of years. She got her degree in Florida when we were in Florida, and
Oh, that's where I am.
She, she loves it, but she's going for her nurse practitioner now,
Oh, good for
and
her. That's great.
she wants to do psychiatric.
Mhm.
So I said to my wife, I said, "Yeah, she'll be able to pop us full of." We'll
You
just
better
have to.
watch out. She'll analyze, you know.
That's what we said.
Yes.
We'll
Oh,
be getting all kinds of things stirred into the drink when we're 85 years old or something like that. Here, try take this. Take the blue pill today. Tomorrow you take the red pill.
yep.
Um, and my kids are adopted, so I've done her family too. And her family, she's mostly English and Irish, and I got her way back. I got her back to not the Irish so much, but the English side, way back to the
Sweet.
I don't know 1200s or something like that.
Nice.
Very lucky to be able to find those kinds of things.
Yes.
Um, and my wife and son, uh, Matt's father's from Puerto Rico, and my wife's father's from Puerto Rico, and they're fifth cousins.
Oh, wow.
So
Cool.
you find it's I think this is really great for um, adopted people
Yes.
because I know there's a lot of people kind of worried about the DNA and how they're going to use it and what am I going to find.
Yeah.
But I think it's been a big help for a lot of people who didn't know who they were. And I had a cousin, in fact, that uh, found out, and I have a good friend who found out he had an older adopted brother.
Wow. Nice.
He had no idea. He again, you have to try and think.
Yeah.
He thinks his father may have had an affair before he married his mother
Mhm.
back in, like I guess the 40s or something like that,
Mhm.
and he has a brother.
That is really, yeah. I find DNA amazing. I know not everyone has the same opinion, and I respect that, but it's definitely amazing, and it helps so much with genealogy. At least the first few generations.
Yeah, and there's I don't know if you've done it. Living DNA, if you send it there, I think it's still free. They do the maternal and paternal side,
Mm.
so they don't just do the autosomal. They give you a breakdown from your mother and father,
Okay.
and they go back 10 to 20,000 years.
Okay.
So they show you where the haplogroups began.
I have done the mtDNA. Is
Oh, you
that
have? Okay.
Yes, I have, and actually that follows my Italian line, because
Well,
it's
yeah, it
all
would have to, of course, it's mother to mother. Yeah.
yep, it's all mother, and I am haplogroup H, which is very, common, except for that's it, I'm just H. I'm not any of the subgroups, so that's a little bit interesting because there doesn't seem to be I'm either gonna be called something later, or I just seem to be in my own little world at the
Yeah.
moment.
I
Like,
didn't
they'll
think
figure
there.
out
I
something with that, I don't know.
and I didn't even realize there weren't any subgroups anymore. I thought everybody was in some sort of subgroup.
Yeah, and I'm just an H, and I only have one person I match with, probably, like, I don't know, I think it's 3 or 5 like, 3 or 5, mutations, so it's not even really close. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm in my own little world here." So,
And so where are they? Where's that haplogroup located now? Where is it prominent?
it looks to be, Greece and Spain. So which actually might make a little bit of sense because, I don't know exactly, but my, great-grandmother's maiden name was Verde, and Verde, is a Spanish word, green, so
Mhm.
I just thought, "Well, maybe," so,
Yeah, I
uh
see now my mother's uh, line. It's almost 95% in the Caucasus.
mm,
I can't figure that out for the life of me.
hmm,
There's no, there's, I think there's a little maybe Greek or something like that,
mhm.
but it's 95% in Caucasus, Russia, that kind of Armenia kind of area.
Yeah, that's
No
interesting.
idea how that
Wow.
happened. And of course, I have the father line, and that makes a little bit more sense because they're in Greece and Switzerland, Sardinia, and a little bit of Spain. So that all kind of makes but mountains, like mountain people.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, so that's pretty cool for people who don't know. There is another path that you need to check. You need to check the, if you're a woman, you get the mother line. If you're male, you get both lines. And then the other one that's really interesting is um, My True Ancestry. I don't know if you heard of them.
My true answer
And
is
you
no.
could send it in there. And what they do, they they they've gone throughout the world to archaeological digs,
Oh.
and they match your DNA to these digs.
So, oh wow.
So
So,
they could trace you back to like the the plague in southern Italy, right? To somebody in the
wow.
plague in southern Italy, or they could trace you
Yeah.
back. So they actually trace you back to the Iceman.
Okay. Depending on what they can find
Depending on,
and what you
yeah,
match.
yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Isn't that cool?
Yes, very.
And
That
they're
is a
doing more and more all the time. I think they do the initial one. I think is free. It does get a little pricey if you want to keep going.
yeah.
I kind of stopped in the mid range, but they do have sales. Because the more you pay, obviously, the more matching that they do. But
Yeah.
even if you do the free one, you get a kind of neat picture of uh, they tell you where and they
Mhm.
tell you when.
Mm. Very
So
neat.
they could tell you that you're from Crusader in the 1300s.
Wow. That is
So that,
amazing.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to when they can do other things, like, and I know they're getting there as far as like hair or something like that to pull the DNA too, because I have like my Merritt's line, as far as that's my maiden name. My Merritt's line has stopped. There's no male descendant, so and I can't. We seem to be like the only ones, but I'm. We have hair, from like my father. I'd love to get that tested at some point and see if there's any, better matches or something. So I'll be looking forward to that.
and that's interesting because um, yeah, that's a great thing to do. I wish they did do that. I mean, they can do it. Maybe it's just too expensive for these companies
It is right
to
now,
then
but
do
as
that. Yeah.
it gets better, I'm looking forward to that. So
Because
it will.
the Elizabethans, I think it was the Elizabethans or the Victorians, one of them used to carry the hair around in a locket.
Mhm. Well, so many people do, like, the first haircut, and you
That's
keep
true,
it,
yeah,
and
and
you
they keep
yeah,
it, yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly what we have, is, like, a first haircut and things like that, so it's
Yeah,
like,
I
"Oh,
think
I
actually they're doing it from dead people, but
yeah, but
they were
they passed
they were
before
a
I
strange bunch.
yeah, yes, they passed before I could get his, the spit sample. Oh,
I guess they had their reasons for doing that. I can't imagine what it was, but I suppose they did.
uh,
Um, well,
but
listen,
yeah, like you
this
said, we
is
are a crazy bunch.
yeah, yeah. This has been a lot of fun for sure. I enjoyed this
Yes,
conversation a lot, and
thanks.
you know,
Him
keep
too.
searching,
Yes,
and keep us posted on what's going on.
I will.
All right, have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye bye.